some bad news. I knew it. I love when he does that.
Well, once you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. So good luck, okay? Good luck.
You say rock bottom, but, like, it just seems like things keep getting worse. What is rock bottom? Who decides what's the bottom of all this? I mean, seriously, you go, okay, today is Friday, and I woke up in Cleveland, and I'm going, how much worse can it get?
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh?
You getting ready, so I know we gon' be here a while. In the bathroom, flat irons and nail files. Spending hours in salons on your hairstyle. And in the mall, steady racking up the air miles. Hit the gym, step on the scale, stare at the number. You say you dropping 10 pounds, preparing for summer. And you don't do it for the men never notice. You just do it for yourself, you the fucking coldest. Intelligent too, ooh, you my sweetheart. I've always liked my women book and street smart. Long as they got a little class like half days. And the confidence to overlook my past ways. Time heals all, and heels hurt to walk in, but they go with the clutch that you carry your lip gloss in. And look, I really think nobody does it better. I love the way that you put it together.
Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh?
Well, aren't you a breath of fresh air? From all these superficial gold digging bitches in here. They get a ball and figure they ain't gotta pick a career. Guess they plan on sucking dicks until some meals appear. Like voila, you do it right, he just might buy you a car. Man, she play these suckers just like B.O.B. play the guitar. Now here you are, with your girls having drinks at the bar. I say I'm buying, you decline, that is kinda bizarre. Independent with the demeanor of an R&B singer. Naked ring finger, M3 Beamer, champagne range, triple white Jag, closet full of brand new clothes and handbags. Alexander McQueen, Prada, Gucci, Chanel, D&G, BCBG, Versace, Louis, and BB. You ain't needy, greedy, or easy as these other breezes who fuck for bottles of reason, the bowls of baked ziti.
Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh?
Girls, let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it. Let them know that everything big. Nail done, hair done, everything big. And my NY girls, let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it. Let them know that everything big. Nail done, hair done, everything big. And my LA girls, let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it. Let them know that everything big. Nails done, hair done, everything big. And my T.O. girls, let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it. Let them know that everything big. Nail done, hair done, nail done, hair done. Said go Cinderella, go Cinderella. Orgasm, blush, lipstick, and concealer. Devil in a tight dress, girl, you a killer. And ain't nobody realer, and ain't nobody realer. Go, 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 go. Showtime. Go, 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 go. As we proceed. 5.5 and boys, asses off the hook. Cinderella about to lose the glass off her foot. And when I find it, is when I find you. And we can do the things we never got the time to. Better late than never, but never late is better. They tell me time is money, but we'll spend it together. I'm down for whatever, you just lead the way. We go to dinner, y'all don't even look at me to pay. Mature women with more than me were the first to tempt me. And Jason had this girl Tammy with a purple Bentley. How she got it, I ain't never get to ask. I just knew that she was fine, like a ticket on the dash. Yeah, but shout out to the homeowners, the girls that got diplomas and enough money to loan us a little something extra, should we ever need it? If it sounds like you, then let me hear you repeat
Oh,
it.
you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? You fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh?
How's it going, ladies and germs? Welcome to episode 279 of the Hoots podcast. It's Thursday, October 14, 2021. It's yours truly, the nefarious bro Adam, talk to you live from the Good Brother Studio in lovely Chicago, Illinois. Ready to dish out another fun podcast, if you will. And we do the show every single Thursday. It comes to you free of charge anywhere you get your podcast from. It's also available on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/the Hoots podcast. Make sure you check it out. If you're an Apple Podcast user, make sure to subscribe and leave us a 4 or 5 star review and rating. Not only does that help expand the reach of the podcast, but me and Brother Carter like to gauge your perspective on what you like, what you guys like or dislike about the podcast. We are 21 episodes away from reaching 300. Next week is going to be kind of crazy as I'm recording this right now. We got next Thursday, October 21st, we got the finals of the G1 Climax tournament. We got Crown Jewel, or as I like to call it, Crown Royal. Crown Royal will be taking place next Thursday. And then we got episode 280 of the podcast next week. So lots to discuss. As always, I appreciate the support. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I appreciate it. Just know that this is a back porch feel type of conversation. We kind of have no filter here. I want you to feel like I'm sitting next to you and we're just shooting the shit about professional wrestling, and that's it. And hopefully you can gain some life lessons along the way and laugh a little bit, and hope I can make your day better as the week goes by. And that's always the goal of this podcast. I want this to be an enjoyable experience for you guys. Hope you can learn something, maybe gain a different perspective than the minutia that you see on Twitter and social media every single week. I speak for myself. Unapologetically, I speak for myself. I think for myself, and I think that's the charm of this podcast, is that I don't have to serve any agenda but my own. And my agenda is that I want people to enjoy professional wrestling, but I don't want people to act like they can't think for themselves and let other people speak for them because they're unable to think for themselves. I just want people to enjoy the product for what it is. And is there stuff that I critique and stuff I don't like? Yeah. But I'm not going to come here and spend 90% of my podcast trying to remind you why wrestling sucks or this and blah, 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 blah. That's not this show. And I'm very appreciative for those who take the time to listen to the podcast, whether it's for 5 minutes, a whole length show, no matter what it is. I really do appreciate the support that you guys give this podcast. It means the world to me and Brother Carter, so thank you guys for that. One last bit of things to plug here. I wanted to make sure you guys bookmark ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com. I've been running the gamut this month when it comes to transcripts and articles and a whole bunch of shit this month. I've already done like 9 or 10 New Japan shows, and it's only October 14th. So check out those articles from the G1. I just did a side pay-per-view for Impact the other day, the all-woman show, the Impact Knockouts Knockdown event, which was pretty cool. Got to do that. Got Bound for Glory around the corner. I think it's a week from Saturday, right? The 23rd. So got to get into that. And who knows what other side events come around. And I know that AEW is going to be on Saturdays for the next couple weeks. They got a Saturday Night Dynamite coming up this week, and then next week in Orlando. How shitty it is for Impact that their biggest pay-per-view of the year is corresponding with Dynamite the same night. That's crazy, man. Anyways, let's get into the Good Brothers Q&A session. As always, I do the segment. It's one of my favorite segments of the show because I get to interact with you guys. You guys send me questions each and every single week. I got questions this week from Chris and Nate, the Good Brothers, as always. So I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to send questions each week. You guys do a phenomenal job. Last week's question was top-notch, so this week should be no different. As always, the drill is you can ask me anything you want. We can talk about wrestling. We can talk about sports. We can talk about real life, mental health, relationships, anything that's on your mind that's bothering you. Maybe you need to gain some perspective. That's what this segment is for. It's the Good Brothers Q&A session, and we always appreciate those who contribute to this segment. So let's get started, shall we? We're going to start off with the good brother, Chris Zaletta, XTeamZaletta24X on Twitter. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. He is the man. He's a great dude. Make sure to hit him up on Twitter. Here we go. He says, here's some questions for the Q&A this week. Can we discuss how bad most of these main events have been on Rampage? Oh, man. Where do I start? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like, where do we start with that? Like, there's been, I think, 9 episodes of Rampage since this new show came up for AEW, and it's like, I was at the United Center show, the first dance for Rampage. This is episode 2, and for me, I'm at lost of words here because, like, I don't know what they're going for with Rampage. First off, you don't need a 4-man announce booth. Let's get that out of the way. I don't need to hear Chris Jericho on my commentary. It's bad enough that he's still on my TV now. But also the fact that, like, you know, they advertise a particular match, you think, oh, this is going to be the main event, right? And as a guy who makes transfers, I kind of have a routine into pre-prepping and making outlines or transcripts. And with that, I come out and try to figure out what picture I'm going to use for the article, because usually I think that would be the main event of the show, right? I have my routines. Usually I wait till after the WWE shows are over and find some cool pics, whatever, on WWE.com, and I'll share that with the transcript that I do. With AEW and some of these other shows that have, like, their cards announced in advance, I do look to see what pick I'm going to use, because usually you would think that's the main event. And then they flip the script, so you would see a match advertised like Bryan Danielson against Nick Jackson. It's Bryan Danielson's first match on Rampage. He's fighting a young buck or Harley boy, right? And they're going to have this big match, but it's the first match of the show. And I'm like, they have a real formatting issue with that show and a match listing problem too, because, like, you get, for example, let's see, with the exception of the 2-hour Rampage thing at Grand Slam, but that's what it was. It was just a super card of tag team matches. I just don't get the goal of Rampage, and a lot of it is useless matches outside, like, the one big match you can announce. Like, for example, you had they announced a couple weeks ago, it was the Lucha Brothers against Butcher to play for the World Tag Team titles. It's not the main event, it's the first match of the show. What's the main event of that show? Miro and Fuego del Sol? Really? And some of it's taped, some of it's live. Rampage this week is going to be live, and I don't even know what's the main event of that show. I'm going to get to the lineup later on, but, like, it's really missing a mark right now as far as I'm concerned. It's not a show that I feel that's must see. You know, the spoilers go up. I'm not a spoiler guy, so I don't look, but I don't need to look. I could AEW, you know, a lot of people talk about booking and things are predictable from one company to another. I could see what AEW does a mile away before it goes on air. So it's not really surprising me who wins or loses on Rampage. But again, going back to this question about the main events, it's like there's nothing worthwhile. They have AEW has a big problem with shooting their load too quickly. Like, they're so in a rush at times of shooting their load. Like, oh, we gotta have, let's say, for example, it would be like CM Punk against let's do CM Punk against Carl Anderson, right? Oh, instead of being the main event, let's jam it up in the first match, and then the main event would be like MJF against Brandon Cutler, or MJF against Michael knocking the fuck off. Like it doesn't serve its purpose. I don't know what they're trying to go with Rampage, and yeah, you want to get some of your other guys and girls on the show or platform to wrestle and stuff on TV, but it's just a useless 1 hour show. Like outside of the Arthur Ashe Stadium show and the one that I went to for the United Center when CM Punk made his AEW debut, Rampage, in most part, has been completely useless. And it exposes their whole philosophy about wins and losses matter, because you guys remember that one episode in Pittsburgh where Miro beat Fuego del Sol, yet Fuego del Sol got an AEW contract after the match, yet losing. You know what I mean? It's just ass backwards at times. So I understand, bro. It's insane. Next question, we got a football one here. Who's in your NFL MVP race discussion so far? Good question. I got two players right now, and it's pretty easy. It's Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. I don't know why I always struggle saying that name. Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. There you go, from the Cardinals. I think Josh Allen's the clear-cut MVP right now for the Bills. He's the Energizer Bunny. He's the tone setter of that football team. You just saw what he did to the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football last week. I mentioned it in the S&E football preview show that we did, that I was going to go with Josh Allen as the MVP, and I haven't been surprised with what he's done so far. I mean, just look at the track and the body of work that he's doing right now. Kyler Murray has a lot of stats, and he's putting up a lot of bad and video game stats right now. It's crazy to think that we're only going to be like 6 weeks into the football season, and dude already has around 2,000 yards. And, I mean, today's NFL is all over the place. I mean, you could get stats today, but stats are misleading. But I feel like Kyler Murray does deserve to be at least in the conversation. But right now, if I had to choose one person right now who I would think would be the MVP right now, it would probably be Josh Allen. Of course, you can mention Tom Brady, but he has a brag of riches weapons galore. He has a brag of riches catalog of weapons down there in Tampa Bay, and it's like, of course, you can say Tom Brady, or every year you can say LeBron James is the MVP, or every year you say Sidney Crosby, or God knows who else is the NHL MVP. I like to think a little bit outside the box and really placate to what the title of that award is. Most valuable player, I think it's definitely Josh Allen right now for the Buffalo Bills. But that's a good question. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that. Here we go. Bad decision with the announcement of the women's TBS title. You know what? As much as I'm critical with stuff with AEW and that, like, I don't really have a problem with them announcing a TBS title. I mentioned it before. I feel like the women's tag team titles in WWE is kind of useless without having a full brand weekly show for just the women. But when it comes to the TBS title for the women, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but here also underlies another problem. And I saw an interview that CM Punk did yesterday with Barstool Sports where he's talking about, do we have enough depth to add on additional championships? And that's an interesting question, because I don't disagree with him. That's a good question to ask. And it's like, not only that, outside of Britt Baker and her like passive aggressive attitude shtick that everybody loves about her, and like, I'm not knocking Britt Baker, she's tremendous, right? But outside of her like snarky passive aggressive attitude, you can't figure out whether you want to cheer or boo for her. Tell me one storyline of the women's division. Are there interesting performers? Are there good wrestlers? Yes, Thunder Rosa is a great wrestler. I love the presentation of Jade Cargill. Penelope Ford and the Bunny are good waterfall. But like, is there any feuds that are coming off the top of your head of the female women's division in AEW outside of whatever Britt Baker's doing with the title. And I don't have a problem if it's a TV match to give the women on AEW more time, because that's been a problem over the years where it's like Bret Carter coined the phrase anything but women. But still, like, if it's something that's going to give the women more time on TV and it's not always the Britt Baker show and then everybody else, I'm okay with that. So let me answer to that question. Thoughts on Will Ospreay appearing in MLW in December? I think it's fantastic. I think MLW is a fantastic show. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorite shows to cover each and every single week. It's a 1-hour show. It's worth your time. I always put it out on Twitter that I think Court Bauer is the best matchmaker when it comes to weekly shows and how things develop. I love the formatting of the show. I thought the show last night was a lot of fun. They started off the Opera Cup tournament with Tom Lawler and David Richards, which was a tremendous match. They also had Calvin Takeman against Lee Moriarty, which was a tremendous match. They have Alicia Toot doing this cool angle with Cesar Duran, possibly bringing back the hottest woman that ever aired on television, Trina from Lucha Underground. There's a lot of stuff going on at MW. It's a fun show to watch and a fun brand to cover. They had a really successful show with their Fightland special on Viceland last week. I got to cover that. It was Hammerstone and Fatu. If you haven't seen that match, go out your way to go check it out. And having Will Ospreay come in, I think it's going to do good things for MLW because Court knows what he's doing when it comes to a promotion point of view and how to get the most out of a big money match. And I think Will Ospreay can do a lot of good things for MLW. And the same thing as we talked about Will Ospreay possibly showed up in AEW. I just think depends on how things are going to go with COVID and everything like that. And when does Will Ospreay go back to Japan? A lot of that stuff is fluid, but the fact that he is showing up in MLW in December, I think is cool. I think it's really, really cool. And I think it's going to do a good thing for MLW from an attention standpoint because they deserve it. And, a lot of people tout that they're alternative wrestling, but MLW actually shows that they are alternative wrestling. They stay true to what they do, and they're not worrying about what other companies are doing. You could do a marketing campaign that you're the alternative, but you actually speak otherwise. And I think you know what I'm talking about. All right, next question. Who do you think is the one to dethrone Shingo Takagi? Great question. I mean, there's a lot of different options, and the thing right now with New Japan is that there hasn't really been a new guy to blossom for the domestic version of New Japan. Like, you always have your mainstays like Naito and Okada, Tanahashi, Ibushi, et cetera, Ishii, Evil. You got Kenta around, but he's a veteran, so he's not really a new guy to dethrone Shingo. I would have to think it would have to be somebody down the road that's for the United States that comes out and beats Shingo. Is Jay White the guy to dethrone Shingo? I think that would be a good option. Jay White coming back and beating Shingo for the world title, I think would be really good. Will Ospreay, does he get a chance to get back to how he never really technically lost? That's another thing to look out for. But there's really not anybody like from the younger stars of New Japan, at least from the domestic side of the promotion, that I think like, oh, okay, do I believe that Sonata could become an IWGP World Champion one day? Sure. Do I think he's the one to dethrone Shingo? I have to see it to believe it. So it's kind of up in the air right now. But I like where New Japan's at. I like the fact that Shingo's had the opportunity to become the world champion, and they've been hit with bad luck with injuries. The COVID stuff obviously hasn't helped them out. But with how successful this G1 tour has been and what they're doing right now in the States and having the tapings for New Japan Strong in Dallas, I think they're doing stuff in Philly this weekend. and at the ECW Arena. These are looking up for New Japan. We got 3 days of Wrestle Kingdom 16 next year, which is going to be insane. And there's a lot of things to look out for with New Japan down the road. Let's see what else we got here. Next question. Impact has lost some female talent over the last year. So how impressed are you that they've been able to replace that talent and maintain arguably the second best women's division in wrestling? I mean, it's certainly impressive. The fact that they build enough depth to feel like they needed to do a pay-per-view, I think it's impressive in itself. They had a tournament where the winner would get a future Impact Knockouts championship match, and that ended up being Mercedes Martinez, which was really cool to see her get some spotlight on Impact. And one thing to say about Impact Wrestling, they've always done right by the women as far as like how they are presented, the amount of time they get in the ring, stuff like that. I'll never take that away from Impact. They've always done, even back in the TNA days, they've always had good footing on the groundswell of women's wrestling, and they don't get enough props or attention or praise for what they do in the women's division because, again, Impact is in this revolving door where they can't get anywhere past 100,000 viewers, or they're on a bad network, and it's like I like Impact. I try my best to support the show and cover each every single week, but it's like when will they finally get past the hill and showcase that they are a legitimate company? Like, I think some shows are hit and miss. The fact that we have to rotate Matt Striker and Josh Matthews on commentary is not a good thing. And it's unfortunate. They are the dreaded stepchild of professional wrestling. They're still there, but nobody really acknowledges or cares what they do. So I give a lot of credit for them. They lost a lot of people, a lot of talented people. But you got people like Tasha Steeles, Rosemary, The Influence. You got Jordan Grace, who I think is one of the best female wrestlers in the world. You got just a lot of people. Taylor Wilde. There's a lot of talented people. I heard that the Iconics are making their Impact debut at Bound for Glory, so that should be interesting. You still got Havoc. There's a lot. The whole women's division is very, very loaded. So props to Scott Demore and Gail Kim, who runs the Knockouts division. They do a very good job of that, so I just want to give some praise for them because they deserve it. Next question. This is the last one here for Chris. He says, with Heyman as the number one contender, what's the point of this championship eliminated tournament? Well, Chris, you tell me, because I have no idea either. I don't know why they did an eliminated tournament last year, but what was it for? Just to have a tournament during the G1 as a counter thing? Like, I don't know. They announced that they're announcing the brackets for the eliminated tournament. Like, are they doing it now because WWE's doing the King of the Ring? Like, I don't know. It's one thing when you have a wrestling company that's run by the wrestling dirt sheet echo chamber. It's really telling. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. It serves no purpose because the next pay-per-view would be Revolution. So whoever wins the eliminated tournament will fight Olivier or Paige at Revolution in February or March, or the first Dynamite of 2022. Like, I don't know. I mean, you get some good matches out of it. That's never been an issue with AEW, having good wrestling matches, but is there anything sustainable out of it? I mean, yes, I get it. Omega and Heyman was in the finals of last year's AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament, but that was predictable as the cows go home. Everybody knew that was going to be the main the finals of that tournament. As predictable as Shayna Baszler winning the Queen's Crown tournament this year. Like, I don't get it. I really don't. I appreciate you, Chris, for sending questions to me. You always do a good job, my man. I appreciate you. All right, next batch of questions this week comes from the good brother Nate the Great at Psycho Nagiri. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Psycho Nagiri. He's a great man. I appreciate you, Nate. Good brother out there from the land of Minnesota. I always kind of wonder how it is for football fans when they like have a last minute like, okay, here we go. Here we got this drive. We got to go down 40 yards down the field and kick a field goal. I always wonder how it is for other sports fans. Like for us Chicago sports fans, we've had our bad history when it comes to field goals and late game situations, and we don't need to get to that right now. I do want to send Nate a shout out again for the questions this week. So here we go. This is an interesting one right here. What title is the best looking in wrestling to you, and what is your favorite title? Best looking, and what's my favorite title? I think the best looking title right now for me is probably between the NXT UK Championship or the United States Championship right now that Davey Priest has. I think that's a really, really good one. My all-time favorite championship is I know everybody goes for the Wing Eagle one from the mid-90s and 80s and stuff like that, but I think for me, the championship after that, the one that Rock was holding, kind of globe-style WWE title, I thought it was really cool. I like the Wing Eagle one. I can't talk today. The Winged Eagle championship, I think is cool. And then, of course, you can't go wrong with the real Sweet Charlotte, the 10 pounds of gold. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship. That's a classic belt. Of course, the big gold belt, the one Ric Flair holds for many years, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. That's an awesome one as well. I think my Uncle Jeremy still has one at the shop that I used to work at. So the big gold belt. You can't go wrong with that, right? All right, next question. For Nate, he says, if Toxic Attraction leave Halloween Havoc all as champions, what would be your reaction? I think it'd be cool because I don't remember a time where you had a female group in NXT that has the potential of what this group can be. And, to start off this new era of NXT and to solidify these three performers as people to look out for, I think it'd be cool. I feel like EO and Zoe Stark were kind of thrown together as champions, so it's kind of like sooner or later you have to drop the titles to a team that actually is a women's tag team. Gigi and JC have impressed me more in the ring than I thought I would be. I've seen Gigi's work in the NWA and AEW and stuff like that, but JC has surprised me as a talent from the Performance Center. Mandy Rose is doing the best work of her career right now. I would not be surprised. I think it'd be really cool. And again, going back to what I mentioned a couple seconds ago, it's like you are establishing a female group and you're establishing three talents as your marquee people to watch out for NXT 2.0. So I think it'd be really cool. Do you wish Legado had gotten drafted? They seem to be in limbo. I can see where you're coming from with that, Nate. I was thinking that Legado would probably be drafted to Raw. I think that would have been a good faction to be there for Monday Night Raw and add Mendoza while to the tag team division. I don't know if I'll say they're in limbo because it just depends on what they're going to do now. Obviously, Santos Escobar lost to Swerve Scott on NXT and then ended up Swerve getting cashed out by Carmelo Hayes. So shout out to Carmelo Hayes for becoming the brand new NXT North American champion. So we'll have to see if Carmelo Hayes gets in the feud with Santos Escobar. But if Santos Escobar is not going for the NXT title, then sooner or later, Legado del Fantasma probably has to show up somewhere on Raw or SmackDown. So that'd be my thoughts on that. Unless they want to give Electric Lopez some more time down there in NXT, I can understand why they want to hold them back. Not hold it back, but keep them in NXT 2.0. Could you see Kushida as NXT champion? I can see him having an NXT championship match, but as an NXT champion, no. I don't see that happening. Next question. Do you think any factions have run their course in New Japan, and what can they do to freshen some up? I think Suzuki Gun has run its course. Like, I'm mostly indifferent whenever I have to do a El Desperado Yoshinobu Camaro match. It's mostly on Camaro. Like, he's like the most generic, like, I could give two shits what he does in the ring type of wrestler. There's kind of like in the catalog of Jake Hagers of the world, or the Kip times New Roman Font Sabians of the world, you know. I think Suzuki's kind of run this course. We haven't got really a new member on Chaos since Will Ospreay left the group, so we'll have to see if they can find somebody big that can join that group and maybe add some steam to that faction. But LIJ is still good. Bullet Club, at least in New Japan, is interesting. The real Bullet Club. And then you got this subdivision group called the House of Torture that just started up with Evil, Yujiro, Dick Togo, and Show. Let's see how that develops after the G1. But I would like to see how things go with the United Empire, since they've added new members. Obviously, they added Aussie Open, and I think TJ Perkins is in the United Empire now. The Great O'Connor's had a really good run in the G1 this year, and obviously Jeff Cobb's pretty sure it's going to win the B block right now for the G1. So I'd probably say if there's one group in New Japan that probably had to switch members or try shaking things up, probably Suzuki Gun, in my opinion. So that's a good question. Do you have any hope or expectations for the Blackhawks this coming season? I don't. We're at the tail end of this era of Jonathan Toews and Patrick King. I mean, they traded off Duncan Keith. I think he's in Edmonton right now, right? Duncan Keith went to the Oilers, right? Sam, you can let me know. You're the hockey guy. Could they win some games? Sure. I was kind of intrigued by some of the moves they made in the offseason, you know, getting Tyler Johnson and guys like that, getting Marc-Andre Fleury as a goaltender. It's interesting getting him for Vegas. But, you know, Patrick Kane's still going to do Patrick Kane things. He's still one of the best U.S.-born hockey players of all time. Definitely one of the best and most underrated Chicago sports athletes of all time. And that's not even debate. Patrick Kane's one of the greatest Chicago sports athletes of all time. I'll add Toews to that list too, even though there's been years where he's been on and off with his stats. But my expectation is I'm just curious to see what they do. If they make the playoffs, I would not be surprised. If they don't make the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like they're kind of an in-between team, and I don't know about Jeremy Collinson. I think they need a more established head coach to probably get more out of the team than what the roster is currently constructed as. Everybody's waiting for Stan Bowman to get fired. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. So we kind of got a team in Chicago that's in limbo. I'm happy that hockey's back, and, you know, they got their butts whipped yesterday by the Avalanche, which was not fun to see. But my expectation is in the middle. I will not be surprised if they make the playoffs, but I would not be surprised if they miss the playoffs too. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And then the last question this week for Nate, the last question here for the Q&A, he says, most people don't ask this enough, so I will. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Oh, man. I appreciate you asking me that. I really do. I don't get that question a lot. And it means a lot to me that you wanted to ask me that. I've been kind of touching on this over the last couple weeks, you know, about how I've been feeling professionally and personally. How I'm doing, I can say that I'm good. I would say that I'm 100% satisfied right now with where I am in my life, at least goals-wise. Like, I feel like I'm doing a really good job of my work, and the fact that I can work from home and cover what I love for a living. I think it's cool, and I'm in a position that not a lot of people are, and I'm very grateful for the job that I have. So I don't want that to be misconstrued or anything like that. I'm not going to complain about that, but I feel like I've been running hard. The G1's really been taking a lot out of me, just waking up in the constant. These are not 2-hour shows. These are 3 or 4.5-hour shows to type out. Some of them are like 5 hours to type out with editing and pausing. It's a lot, and updating the reference sheet and making the outlines for the next week's shows, and it's a lot that's going on. So I'm juggling a lot of things when it comes to the website. Things with the podcast is going really good. I have no complaints with what's going on right now with the show. The feedback's been awesome. The numbers are speaking for itself. You guys have done an awesome job supporting this podcast, and I could not be more grateful for each and every single one of you. For me personally, living by myself now, just going in for 10 months now, it's been a process, and I don't really have a lot of friends here in the city of Chicago that I speak to, at least, anymore. A lot of my main friends live out of the city, so communication's been kind of hit and miss. I think that's kind of bugged me down a little bit, but made the best out of it. I'm mostly reserved in nature, so that is what it is. I kind of talked about this stuff with Lauren a few weeks ago, and I'm going to talk about that again. But I think for me, I was having this conversation with my dad the other day. It's I'm really taking advantage of the things that I'm supposed to focus on and doing like that. I've readjusted my sleep schedule where I'm not losing sleep like I was this time last year. Trying to do some different things as far as what I'm eating or whatever. Just trying to scale some stuff down, and then. But it's also I getting back in that routine of paying bills and stuff like that. I've been doing a good job of that. Keeping steady with my money, that's been important. I've been very cautious with that. Paying for my rent every month, paying for cable and internet. Just that process is my first time doing it by myself. So you would understand for where I am in my age and where I am in my life right now. I'm adjusted to this period right now, and I don't want to take this period in my life for granted because I'm learning a lot about myself and I'm learning a lot about life. And I would say my personal life is good. It's not great. My relationship with my parents are awesome. I always enjoy the interaction with them when I do get to see them or talk to them on the phone or whatever. I get to see my dad every week, so it's always cool. I miss my sister. There's that. That's not the fun part. I miss my brother, Adam. I haven't heard from him in a while. I miss him. And I think probably the biggest thing right now for me, I'm really ready to start the next chapter in my life. That's where my head's at right now. Am I happy that I got my own place? Am I happy that I have my own studio to record my own show? Yes. Am I happy that professional wrestling allows me to work from home and stuff like that? Yes. Am I in good spirits with myself? Yes. I'm happy. I'm not bitter or have any resentful feelings towards anybody or anything like that. I'm in a good place within myself. I talked about, healing from my heart being fractured and stuff like that. I think I've done a better job with that recently, and I feel like I'm at peace with myself and with that whole situation, and I'm in good spirits when it comes to that. But everything else is I'm just ready to start the next chapter in my life. I feel like I'm having fatigue with living here in Chicago, and I feel like I'm not growing or getting any better by staying here. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I wanted to convey with you guys is that I'm ready to move and I'm ready to start the next chapter in my life. I really think that's the biggest thing for me. And I'm happy with how things are. I enjoy my bed. I enjoy the comfort of my own apartment. All that stuff is fine. Getting to set my own schedule, do things in my own terms, have peace, no drama, no anything like that. That's awesome. I'm very grateful for that. But I'm really ready to start the next chapter of my life, and I'm excited to see what the potential of the website is going forward, or when I finally get to start working in the wrestling business, when I can start taking myself to the next level, like that. That's where my head's at right now. And right now it's just appreciating every day that it is, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I just want to make sure that I'm having fun, and having fun with this, having fun with the articles, but also understanding that to learn more about myself and what I need to improve on and how I can grow to be a better person every single day. And my mental health is better than it was this time last year. So that's a good thing. And I feel better. I feel like I'm moving around better. The process of losing weight is a process that doesn't disappear overnight, but I'm working on it, and I feel like I'm trimming down and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm a good place health-wise, like knock on wood, obviously. But I'm doing really good. But also at the same time, I'm not satisfied, and I'm just really ready, more importantly, to start the next chapter of my life. That's where my head's at. So I appreciate you asking me that question, man. I really do, because I don't have a lot of people who ask me how I'm doing. So the fact that you asked me, that shows how much of a good brother you are. So I appreciate you, Nate. I want to thank Nate and Chris, 2 parts of CNN, my Good Brothers Q&A session group, the faction CNN, Chris, Sam, and Nate. But Chris, Nate, thank you guys for sending questions this week. As always, if you want to contribute to the Good Brothers Q&A, all you have to do is hit me up at Josh Lopez Media, or email us to hootspodcast@gmail.com. So I want to thank you guys for checking out the Good Brothers Q&A session. When we come back here, I'm going to tell you what happened this week in WWE right here on the Hoots Podcast. Yes, sir.
I want you to tell the truth. I want you to come clean. I want you to admit that you're responsible for Brock Lesnar's free agency.
My tribal chief, I'm in a terrible situation here, because no matter what I say, it's gonna sound like I'm spinning things. I am loyal and faithful to my tribal chief. I've been with their family for 40 years. You chose me, rescued me, saved me to be your special counsel, because you knew I am the wise man. I've been accused of many things in my life, and I'm guilty of even more, but I've never been accused of being stupid. And pulling the trigger now on a scheme to dethrone the tribal chief would be stupid. Why pull the trigger before a crown jewel? Wouldn't the whole thing be for me to stay within your circle of trust and then counsel you on a strategy at Crown Jewel, and then leak the strategy over to Brock Lesnar so that Brock Lesnar would think that he has a chance, and Brock Lesnar has no chance, but he would think that he would have a chance against you? Wouldn't that be the time to pull the trigger? You know how you know that Brock Lesnar is lying to you? Because we're telling you in advance of a move that would be made against you, and only someone stupid would do something like that. And my tribal chief, I think so highly of you, you wouldn't choose a stupid man to be your special counsel. Brock Lesnar cannot stand the fact that at Crown Jewel, the conqueror will be conquered by Roman.
I don't want you to tell me. I want you to look into that camera and I want you to tell Brock.
Brock, I have to give you a ton of credit. You outsmarted the wise man on this one. Frankenstein taught the doctor a lesson. You know what's going to happen to you at Crown Jewel. We've had this conversation years ago. They said The Undertaker couldn't be defeated at WrestleMania. I told you The Undertaker met his match, and the match's name was Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar has met his match, and his match's name is Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns will walk into Crown Jewel as your tribal chief, and he will fight you as a tribal beast. And you will learn at Crown Jewel one thing: the winner and still reigning, defending, undisputed, uncontroverted WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. And that's not just a prediction. Brock Lesnar, that is a spoiler. And you can believe that.
Mic drop. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hoots Podcast. You just heard a clip right there of Paul Heyman saying some very interesting words to his former client, who he advocated for many, many, many years. The one and only Brock Lesnar. You're the wise man when I say you're the wise man. Hey, I keep you on your toes, right? Welcome back to the program, everybody. Time to let everybody know what went down this week in WWE. First off, shout out to everybody who checked out my thoughts on the draft and what I've done to switch up different matches and stuff like that. I appreciate that. We're going to start off with what happened on SmackDown last week, as we usually do here in the podcast. We always like to go from when I last spoke to you to where we are today. I kind of like the fact that our show is kind of a SmackDown preview show, but we'll talk about what happened in last week's show as SmackDown took place in San Jose, California, at one of my favorite arenas, the SAP Center. I always say it, man, the SAP Center has the best air conditioning of any arena I've ever been to in my life. Show started off with Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, and Sasha Banks for their contracts signed for their triple threat match at Crown Royal. Bianca was like really, really ticked off. Like you could see, like she was losing her composure after Becky said, "Oh, I beat you in 26 seconds," and she's like, she went off the rails, and that ended up going into a Pier 6 brawl. Bianca did a nice, cool spot where she was about to do the double KOD, and then Sasha landed back on her feet. Ended up where Bianca did the KOD through the table with Becky, with Sasha laying flat on the table. So that was a cool spot. So I kind of like what they've been doing with these three ladies. It's obviously the top program right now for the females once this transitional period comes to an end and we get to some new feuds at their Crown Royal. But Bianca gets better each and every single week. And Corey Graves made a comment on Raw this week that I thought was pretty accurate, and it may be controversial, but Bianca does Sasha Banks better than Sasha Banks does Sasha Banks. And that's fact. We saw a vignette of Hit Row. I thought that was interesting. We'll get to this, tying two parts here for this segment here for what happened this week in WWE. we had the start of the King of the Ring and Queen's Crown tournament. And I've seen a lot of people this week discuss about the fact that they're upset that it's not a longer length tournament. There's not 16 people on both sides of the tournaments. I don't know what you guys were truly expecting to do a full-length tournament like a G1 or something like that off the cuff. With Crown Royal right around the corner. It's just unrealistic. I think the reason they were doing the tournaments was for the fact that they wanted to do it at Crown Royal. It's just another added attraction to that event. So I was not surprised that it was only 8 people. I will say, though, and I like being fair here when it comes to all wrestling shows, I should be allowed to format brackets for wrestling tournaments. I'm just gonna throw that out there. And I kind of gave you a forewarning last week on the podcast as far as like, don't expect to see Damian Priest or the champions per se in this tournament, because they're infused and they're in the titles and they're going into the show at Crown Jewel. So I was looking more from a realistic standpoint instead of my fancy bookhand. Like, if you asked me, Joshie, to set up a tournament for the men and the women, it would be the dopest bracket that you would find anywhere else. And I know you guys that listen to the podcast know I'm not talking out of my ass. Like, I am that confident within myself that I can make a dope bracket of the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown tournament. If that's something you would like to see me type it out for you and how I would have set it up, I'm more than happy to do that. But you have to hit me up on Twitter. If you're listening to the show right now, if you would like to see what I would have done different in the brackets of the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown tournament, please let me know. Hit me up on Twitter and I'll think about it. But it has to be if you guys want me to do it. But we started off with a good match here with Rey Mysterio and Sami Zayn. I like the fact that they're paired up with each other because they have this storyline going on right now. And we're getting to this eventual turn of Dominic turning on Rey being the soccer coach dad. And I thought they had a good match. Rey could go and Rey Mysterio could be 65 and still do what he's doing right now. Like, Rey Mysterio's a man. But Sami Zayn won. I thought it was the right choice there. So he won. He's going to be taking on Finn Balor, who also had a really good match with Cesaro on SmackDown last Friday night. So I thought the King of the Ring matches for SmackDown this week were better than the ones on Raw. But Finn Balor against Sami Zayn is going to be a tremendous match tomorrow night on SmackDown. And SmackDown is in Sacramento. Now, another part of the stuff that people complain about, because it can't be a week in WWE without people going on soapboxes. This one I don't disagree with. I was very not bummed out by the decisions that went down in the Queen's Crown tournament, but I don't like how the bracket was set up, and two, the thing with them barely getting 2 or 3 minutes to have their matches, I just think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't care what are sub feuds that you got to do right now, but to not have these ladies at least go one commercial break. If it's something that you want to have a match that goes like 7 or 8 minutes, cool. I completely understand that. And, time is precious when it comes to TV, and I understand that. But rushing through Carmella, Liv Morgan, and, Selena Vega. Selena Vega being Toni Storm I had no issue with that. She's a good wrestler, and I was generally surprised by that, that she won. And that's also not a sign that Toni Storm is buried. They haven't really done much with her to necessarily say that she is buried. There's been a couple vignettes. She hasn't wrestled that much on TV. So I wasn't that surprised that Selena Vega won. I was surprisingly happy that she won. I want to make that clear. But I would rather see this match get some more time. That's probably my biggest issue outside of the brackets. I just didn't think was a good one. They have a good females division, but they're not put in the right positions, and that's unfortunate. Let's see. We found out that Sonya Deville is. I'm putting air quotes here. Sonya Deville is going to have a match with Naomi on SmackDown tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I'll tell you right now, that match will not happen. Some shenanigans are going to go on. And I like what they're doing with this program with her and Naomi. I'm digging it. It's entertaining, but they're not doing that. Something that I don't get, and it's starting to piss me off now, is this stuff with Baron Corbin and Kevin Owens. Like, I don't know what's going on right now where Kevin Owens can't beat up fucking Riddick Moss and Baron Corbin, and these two are just laughing their ass off the entire time. I'm not with that. But the main takeaway for me for SmackDown this week, obviously, of course, is the Tribal Chief is the best performer in professional wrestling today, and it's not close. And secondly, Edge and Seth Rollins inside Hell in a Cell. Man, that segment was awesome. You, me, Hell in a Cell. How cool is that? We got an actual Hell in a Cell match that people are excited for, and a Hell in a Cell match that's worthy of the gimmick being attached to it. So, Edge and Seth Rollins is going to be awesome. What a way to wrap up that program, too. So, I'm telling you guys, man, this lineup for Crown Jewel is really, really good right now. Let's talk a little bit about Raw before I get into that. This week we had Raw in San Francisco, the home of the Warriors. I thought Raw was a mixed bag this week. I just felt like the flow of the show wasn't that great. A rough night on commentary, too. But there was a couple of things I did like on the show. Xavier Woods and Ricochet, I thought was a really good match in the King of the Ring tournament. Going back to what I said earlier about matchmaking on TV and weekly, it's honestly, it's not an easy job. But I feel like right now for WWE, they really struggle with coming up with weekly match pairings for Raw each week. At least ones that keep people's attention throughout the show. And another thing is that, like, you know, I come on here, I always say, like, you should be going on a soapbox about a wrestling match ending in a wrestling move, aka a roll-up. But when you have 10 matches on the show, and I don't know, 5 or 6 of them end in roll-ups or DQs, no contests, indecisive finishes, I just don't know what the goal of that was. One thing I really liked about Raw this week was the promo for Bobby Lashley. I thought that was really good. Excited for this match with Goldberg. It's no holds barred. It's not for a championship. So let's see what goes down. I obviously, Goldberg's going to be on Raw next week, right? You would think going into Crown Royal. So Raw is the go-home show this coming Monday. Somebody should alert Seltzer Jr. that I'm going to get to that later on. But I wouldn't say this show was horrible, but it wasn't anything to write home about either. The stuff with the women, the tag match, that just sloppy brawl was all over the place, and it made the referee look stupid too. That ended in a no contest. Piper Niven beat Natalya. She's going to be fighting Shayna Baszler in the semifinals of the Queen's Crown tournament. I like the stuff with Ali and Mansoor, and then Ali has some interesting comments on the bump this week. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I thought it was good. And then we had Big E and Drew McIntyre against the Usos, a random match, but a match that was pretty good to close out Raw. I thought it was a good match. The Usos wanted to be a count out. Ended up this whole scenario with a brawl with McIntyre and Big E. McIntyre dropped Big E with the Claymore that wrapped up the show. I think Big E and Drew McIntyre are going to have an awesome match at Crown Jewel. But again, there was some stuff I liked from Raw, but I thought this week's show from previous week was more of a hit and miss scenario. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And then here's the card for Crown Royal. We got Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks in a triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's title. Rematch of SummerSlam, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle against AJ Styles and Omos for the Raw Tag Team titles. Big E and Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. Goldberg and Bobby Lashley in a no-holds-barred match. Edge and Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell match. And Mustafa Ali against Mansoor. It's a good card so far. I'm curious to see if they add anything else to it. This is probably going to be a long show next week, and I'm going to have to see how I'm going to go about it, like with this show, when I'm going to record it. So I apologize in advance if the show is out later than you would expect it to be. I'm going to try my best to figure it out because I got the finals, obviously, of the G1 on Thursday. I got to figure out how all that's going to work out. But keep tuned to my Twitter page at Josh Lopez Media, and I'll keep you guys updated as far as how that goes. But next Thursday is going to be a blur for me. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Raw. I'm excited for Crown Royal. I know I get it, a lot of people don't like the fact that WWE does shows in Saudi Arabia. I'm in the opinion that I don't think countries should be punished with missing out from action from professional wrestling just because of what their politics do. It's different opinions for different people, but I don't think people in Saudi Arabia should be banned from watching wrestling shows or attending wrestling shows because their leaders are a bunch of scumbags and stuff like that. No country is perfect, especially the one I live in. By the way, shout out to the modern day Maharaja beating Kofi Kingston, much to the pleasant dismay of Chris Aletta. That made my night. I'm kidding, brother. Shout out to the modern day Maharaja. Xavier Woods, Jinder Mahal, good babyface versus heel matchup for the semifinals, and then Finn Balor and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn beating Finn Balor would be really interesting. I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out for Crown Jewel. We'll have to see. It's going to be a very interesting couple weeks here to see where that goes. But last thing I want to talk about here for the WWE segment this week, NXT UK. We always do a preview of NXT UK before we wrap up this portion of the segment. And today we got NXT UK is having their first show with an audience inside the BT Sports Studios since the beginning of the pandemic. And we got the beautiful, and I mean beautiful, Blair Davenport against Stevie Turner. That's going to be an awesome match. And then we got Ilya Dragunov putting his NXT UK title on the line today against the A-Kid. You want to talk about G1 matches, match of the year, stuff like that? This is a match to check out. Ilya Dragunov against the A-Kid. That's going to be badass. Also badass was that Noam Dar Wolfgang match. Shout out to Noam Dar, who won the number 1 contenders tournament. He'll be down the line fighting Tyler Bate for the NXT UK Heritage Cup Championship. I gotta tell you, man, I always have fun covering like New Japan shows and stuff like that, but the concept of the British round matches where the matches are in rounds, I love it. It's one of my favorites to cover. They do a lot of them in NXT UK. It's a lot of fun. I get to learn different wrestling styles and stuff like that. And it's cool from a formatting point of view. So I'm really excited for NXT UK today. Check it out. Dragunov Kid today on NXT UK. Check it out on Peacock or the network or anywhere you check out NXT UK. NXT UK is still my favorite WWE show that's out there in the world of professional wrestling. On that note, folks, that's what happened this week in WWE. All right. Before we get into our main event segment of the show this week, I got to get to what went down. And it's time, folks, for Joshie's Week 4 report of the G1 Climax tournament. Dum, 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 dum. Man, guys, this has been a crazy couple of weeks for me, and I've been really trying my best to cover every show and get you all the proper details so you guys are updated with everything that's going on. Folks, we are 3 shows away from the G1 coming to an end. We are a week away from figuring out who is going to Wrestle Kingdom 16. you got a lot of scenarios here. We got some interesting scenarios that are going on right now as far as the G1 is concerned. Here's the updated standings as we speak to you right now on Thursday, October 14th. So right now in the A block, we got a 4-way tie at first place with 12 points. It's Zack Sabre Jr., Kota Ibushi, Shingo Takagi, and Kenta at 12 points. These performers are eliminated. Ishii has 10. The Great Okan has 8. Yano 8. Loa 4. Takahashi at 4. And then Naito obviously out with the injury. In the B block, Jeff Cobb is in first place with 16 points. Okada in second place with 14. Evil's at 12, so he's eliminated, as is Hiroshi Tanahashi, Sanada, Tama Tonga, Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi, Chase Owens, and Taichi. When I last spoke to you guys was last Thursday, obviously. So last Friday, we had a couple of crazy matches. Jeff Cobb and Sanada from last Friday was insane. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. It's crazy thing. I've done 5 G1 shows since the last time we spoke to each other. It's just a lot of stuff going on right now. There's some matches along the way that's really stood out to me. Kenta and Zack Sabre Jr. from Saturday was insane. If you guys haven't seen the Great Okan and Kota Ibushi, you should check that out. Also, the Great Okan is the main event on Tuesday. No, it was yesterday on Wednesday with Shingo. Was a really, really good match as well. Sanada Yoshihashi from Tuesday was good. Let's see. Tonga Lowe's had some really good performances over the last couple of days. His match with Kenta is one of the funniest matches I've seen on a tour so far, but it's also really good too for a wrestling standpoint. I mentioned Shingo beat the Great Okan. Jeff Cobb defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi in the main event for the Tuesday show. Evil and Dick Togo, I don't know, man. That stuff is not working right now for me. It's so much of the blatant cheating stuff. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, at least you got a lot of the storytelling in ring with Jay White when he would cheat with Gato. This is just lazy stuff. Like, I could telegraph when Evil is going to throw somebody into the barricade and knock down the timekeeper. You know, it's like, I just like to see something different. I like Evil, but he needs to do something different. This stuff with Togo, the Garrett, and all this stuff is kind of ridiculous. But today, for the G1, we had Hiromu Tanahashi and Bushi beat Fujita and Uiwa in a prelim match for the Young Lions. Chase Owens defeated Taichi today via package pile driver. That was a good match. Sanada and Hiroki Goto. By the way, if you want like a example of what a good mid-card match is, especially tournament-wise, now with New Japan, they have the most unique tournaments because it's round robin. You're fighting different people on different days. It's a different setup than your traditional tournament. Okay, this is the first round, this is the second round, blah, 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 blah. But if you want a quintessential tournament match, check out Sanada and Hiroki Goto from today, because that was just good, pure wrestling and just a really, really good match. I thought Hiroshi Tanahashi and Yoshihashi was good. Jeff Cobb defeated Evil and his shenanigans. And then today, we had Tama Tonga upset Okada clean. No shenanigans, no nothing. Tama Tonga defeated Okada, which allowed Jeff Cobb to get into first place in the B block. So, the last thing I want to mention here before we wrap up this segment, we got the finals coming up. We got a show on Monday, we got a show on Wednesday, and then we wrap it up in the Nippon Budokan on Thursday. The card for the Thursday show is not announced, obviously, due to standings, and we got to figure out how things are going to go. But here's the lineup for Monday and Wednesday, okay? So this is the finals for the A block. Prelim match, Great Okan against Satoshi Kojima. Obviously, Naito's out, so this would be Great Okan's last match on the tour, I think, unless he's added to something on Thursday. We have Ishii and Yano, Shingo against Yujiro, Zack Sabre Jr. against Tonga Loa. I'll tell you guys right now, right here, on the Hoots podcast, Tangaloa will beat Zack Sabre Jr. Tangaloa will cost Zack Sabre Jr. the G1. You can hear it right here on the Hoots podcast. And then we got Kota Ibushi and Kenta. And that's the thing. Where could this go? If Kenta beats Ibushi, Shingo could find his way back on the top because Zack Sabre Jr. lost and Ibushi lost, and Shingo has the the tiebreaker over Kenta. So if Kenta beats Ibushi, Shingo would win the 8 block. If Ibushi wins and Zack Sabre Jr. loses, he wins. If Kenta wins and Shingo and Zack lose, Kenta will win the 8 block. There's a lot of different scenarios right now for the 8 block. Just be on the lookout for it. And, Chris Sansa, Chris Sansa on Twitter, you check him out. He has all the scenarios posted on his Twitter page. Check out his work. That guy's awesome, man. I really love his coverage of G1. And then Wednesday, for the B block finals at NipCon Budokan, we have another match of the tag team match there. Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi against Fujita and Oiwa. As I mentioned earlier that we saw today, we have Hiroshi Tanahashi and Taichi. Hiroki Goto against Tama Tonga. Yoshihashi against Chase Owens. Evil against Sonata. And then Okada and Jeff Cobb definitely has to be the main event for the Wednesday show. So we're getting down the wire here. And I'm not going to be able to talk to you guys until next week, obviously. So I have to figure out who's going to be in the finals of the G1. And I'll tell you right now, I believe right now that Ibushi will take on Jeff Cobb in the finals of the G1. You heard it here first. I think it'll be Ibushi against Jeff Cobb in the finals of the G1. It could be Okada. I will not be surprised. But there's a lot of different scenarios that could happen here. Going back to the 8 block, Zack Sabre Jr. could win the 8 block if Shingo and Ibushi loses. Or, well, that's not true. Zack Sabre Jr. could win if Kenta and Shingo wins because Zack has the tiebreaker over Ibushi and Shingo, but Kenta defeated Zack Sabre Jr. That's what I mentioned earlier. If Zack and Shingo loses, Kenta will win the A block. So a lot of scenarios, a lot of mental gymnastics there. Hopefully I made it out clear as possible for you guys so you understand what's going on. But yeah, there's a lot of scenarios. The G1's coming to an end on next Thursday. It's been a lot of fun covering this tournament, and I hope my coverage has been very useful for you guys. And I hope it's made the experience of the tour better for you guys understand. And it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, that's my report for this week's action of the G1 Climax tournament. All right, folks, it's time to get folks everywhere around the world. It's the most controversial yet most entertaining and informative segment in the world of professional wrestling today, affectionately known as What the Hell is Wrong with AEW? And for the second week in a row, I had to had to steer the ship. I'm flying solo again for the main event segment of the show again this week. But don't fret, folks. You will get a Thoughts of Dericho at the end of this podcast. But with that being said, it's time for What the Hell is Wrong with AEW. And we're going to start it off in a 3, 2, 1.
It's time for What the Hell is Wrong with AEW?
Alright, folks. You've been waiting for it. Here we go. What the hell is wrong with AEW? AKA, what isn't wrong with AEW? Flying solo again this week. It's all good. Bret Hart's handling his business with the music stuff. That's all good. Bret Hart will get back to the segment sooner or later, so don't fret about it, everybody. I mean, where do I start? It's very interesting. This is one of these rare weeks where we don't have a actual mud show, TV show to recap. So this week's kind of different. I got to preview Dynamite that's taking place on Saturday. We'll talk about it here next week. And then we got Rampage coming up on Friday. And a lot of stuff outside the ring with AEW this week that we're going to discuss. So I'm going to go over really quick about some of the matches that are already announced for Dynamite and Rampage this week. And then we'll get into what everybody's been waiting to hear me talk about. And also in this, I want to take a step back and talk about 2 years of AEW Dynamite, the show, and where the company is at right now. So, with Dynamite coming up on Saturday, we got a couple of matches announced there. We got Bryan Danielson against Bobby Fish. We got Malachi Black against Dante Martin. And we got a match for the AAA Tag Team titles where the Lucha Brothers will defend against a team that are closely friends with Andrade El Idolo. And we'll see how that goes. There hasn't been other matches announced. I'm sure they'll be announced either today or tomorrow ahead of Dynamite. But it also they announced that they're going to announce the bracket for the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament that will conclude at Full Gear in Minnesota on November 13th. And then for Rampage this week, we got a buy-in special where it's going to be Bobby Fish against Lee Moriarty, and Bryan Danielson will be taking on Minoru Suzuki in the buy-in show. And I'll explain why that's happening in a little bit, but let me first say this. If Karen Danielson was fighting Minoru Suzuki in New Japan, I'd be more excited for it. What I've seen from Suzuki in AEW is watered down, and he's just there. I'm glad that the match is going to be on YouTube so Suzuki does not get cut off through a commercial breaks. Suzuki is one of those performers that you can't have him on a television show. I'll just say that. Suzuki is one of those performers that you have to appreciate what he does for an entire match. And the fact that this match should be on YouTube, cool. You have something that's free for everybody. You get to see a match that people thought they would never see again. I think Brian mentioned that he had a match with Suzuki in the past. I have seen that. I have to probably go do some research about that. But this is my first time seeing these two fight each other. And obviously, that'll be a tremendous match. Bobby Fish against Lee Moriarty. Okay, fine, I guess. But as I read off the list of the matches that are announced for Dynamite and Rampage this week, are any of those, wetting your beak? Is it getting your juices flowing? Is it really pulling something out of you? So is it something that you feel it's must see for the shows this week? Like, for example, Rampage. We got Ruby Soho against the Bunny. We got the Inner Circle Jerk and the American Top Team in a trios match. Now, I can't figure out whether CM Punk and Matt Sydal will be the main event or the first match show, because, WWE lives rent-free in AEW's head, so they'll probably do something where they'll have inclusion of SmackDown on FS1, right? SmackDown's having the supersized shows, 2.5 hours this week. They'll probably do something where they have CM Punk against Matt Sydal while things are going down with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and I'm going to get to that in a couple minutes. But again, Ruby Soho against the Bunny, the Inner Circle Jerk against the American Top Team, and CM Punk against Who Gives a Shit About Me, Matt Sydal. Like, honestly, who gives a shit? And it's just something that I really want to spend a Saturday night really documenting Dynamite. Like, Malachi Black and Dante Martin could be cool. I wouldn't have a problem with that match. I'm curious to see who the tag team is for Andrade Alito because I like the Lucha Brothers. I like what they do. I think that could be a good match. Brian Danielson and Bobby Fish cancel each other out because they're basically the same guy in the ring. So, I don't know, guys. It's a big disconnect for me. And as I look back at last week's show, with it being the 2-year anniversary of Dynamite and where things are right now with the company, and it's like, I feel like a lot of the stuff with their praise and their momentum right now is kind of misleading in a lot of ways, and it's a lot of it is forced praise to satiate a market of wrestling fans who just don't like WWE style of wrestling, and it's like, I'm going to put everything that AEW does over just because I'm that upset with WWE. And it's like, to say that makes a company stand out more than another, I just think it's kind of goofy. Because no wrestling company does everything right every single week. Not even the WWE. You guys heard my segment earlier. I said I wasn't that crazy about Raw this week, and I wasn't crazy about the setup for the bracket for the Queen's Crown tournament. I'm fair. I call a spade here. And when I watch the shows, I want to see something different. I want to say, okay, this is something that I can attach to. This is something I can say, hey, this is AEW and this is AEW for that reason. And I haven't found that yet. And we're 2 years into the show and 3 years into this promotion. And the running excuse of, oh, it's a new company, died last week. And I'm watching the shows, and I see Dark and Elevation each week, and I see the stuff on social media. I watched the interviews with Tony Khan on Barstool Sports this week, and I see his tweet about him saying, oh, you guys are going to come after me. Oh, I've been waiting to beat your top show. And it gets to the point where, is there good aspects about AEW? Sure. But the more prevailing thing is that I feel like they get in their way more ways than none. By the way, you're never going to hear me do a review of Road to the Top on this broadcast. I got more important things to do in my life. I don't even have time for myself. So for you to expect me to carve out an hour of my time to see what Jeff Jarrett and his wife is doing each week, you guys are out of your ever-loving mind, okay? So, let me look at something I got here before we get to the main part of this segment this week. We're going to play a little game here called Trip Down Capville. And I want to thank the good brother Mike at Main Event Swerve on Twitter. He sent me this yesterday, direct message. He sent me this tweet of somebody saying, and quote, I want to read this verbatim, okay? WWE is taking the war to AEW, to our doorsteps. If you don't see it, you're blind. Anyone that calls himself an AEW fan has the obligation to watch Rampage this week. If you're a diehard, you'll support no matter what. No other plans on your schedule. ... Period. ... Give me peace and sanity here before I lose my mind. Not only is that Cap, this is an illustration of somebody with no life and no self-awareness. I don't have an obligation to watch any fucking wrestling show at a certain time. This ain't the 90s where I had to sit down at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night to watch the fucking Sopranos. It's not that a point where I get to sit down at a certain time to watch Raw or SmackDown when it goes live. It's a little different for me now because I'm covering the show. It's a different experience. But let's say Joshie's not in the wrestling media, right? Let's say I'm not doing what I'm doing right now. I'm doing something else. Do you guys honestly believe that I would be putting my time to myself to the back burner so I could rush to see an hour show with a shitty 4-man announce booth, 3 matches that are inconsequential to what's going on to the shows, And all in the sakes of, let's have another AEW WWE war. Let's have the Monday Night Wars again. I'm going to say something that's controversial. As much with the ratings and business and everything in between that went down in the Monday Night Wars, the Monday Night Wars was counterproductive to both WWF and WCW. And they both have hindered themselves in their own way, where WCW would not focus on their younger talent, hence why they got themselves in a position where they had to sell off the company. And WWE put themselves in a position where they can do whatever they want. And you know what? And here's the thing, too, about this that's really interesting. Like, I put the title of the podcast this week called The Counterproductive Wars. Because, honestly, what the fuck are we doing here? Do we want wrestling to go down by going down this rabbit hole again where we have this, we have AEW on Monday nights. We're going to redo the Monday Night Wars sooner or later. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Or the Friday Night Wars. You know, everything has to be a war. And everybody talks about, you really can see who people who really don't like competition and stuff like that. I don't give a shit. I can compete with anybody. But here's the thing about competition. It's, pumping out your chest saying, I want to do this because I want to compete, and I'm this, blah, 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 blah. And then there's letting your work speak for yourself. I don't need to pump up my chest and tell you how good I am. I know how fucking good I am. I don't need to tell you how good I am when it comes to transcripts or transcribing a wrestling match or doing a wrestling podcast. You guys know. I don't have to say it. So this whole fucking acting like high school kids, I guarantee you're going to have a great wrestling show. I mean, because if you saw the show on Monday, it sucked. Like, what am I getting out of that? So, because Tony Khan has such a fucking inflated ego from all these dirt sheet guys, and Meltzer and Seltzer are basically his creative team and his creative filter. This guy put himself in a position where, you got all the money in the world. Your father's football team is in PR shambles. Your football team that you're responsible for, you're the general manager for, plays like dog shit. And I had people from the UK reach out to tell me that. And you're going to sit here with your fucking shitty ass haircut, looking like you haven't fucking took a shower in 3 weeks. Look like you haven't took a nap in a year. Oh my god. This dude with this fucking false bravado, and this is the same guy at the initial stage of this promotion that told you that I'm not going to speak on what other promotions do because that was a mistake other promoters used to do back in the day. And what is he doing now? Making the same mistake that every wrestling company has made over the last 20 years since this shitty ass Monday Night Wars went down. Reading press clippings and getting away of focusing on building an identity with your own fucking show. Anybody that comes here and tells me that AEW is an alternative is full of shit. Okay? It's full of shit. Because, tell me, what is so different from the wrestling that you see in AEW that you can't see in MLW or New Japan or Ring of Honor? And this is the company that's called All Elite Wrestling. And they're telling me if the alternative is, they got creative freedom. They can swear. It's TV 14. We can do whatever we want. We got creative freedom. Guess what? TNA was TV 14. How'd that work out for them? They have creative freedom. How'd that work out for them? Just because you're part of the wrestling dirt sheet or wrestling Twitter echo chamber doesn't mean you have the pulse of every single wrestling fan out there. And this is the funny thing that I always go back to when it comes to this conversation, because anytime you critique AEW or have a differing viewpoint of what they're doing right now, somebody always got to lump into WWE. Well, you're just saying that because you want to defend the WWE. No, we're having a conversation about AEW. You're sitting here and telling me that this promotion is an alternative. This promotion is doing things that's never been done before. What? TNA's had people from fucking New Japan on there. Oh, they're TV-14, so they could be edgy. Wow, I didn't know the only way to have a good, successful, viable television-based wrestling show is for it to be TV-14. I watched the show. I covered every single event from AEW. And you want to know what a real alternative was? It was Lucha Underground. That was an alternative. But guess what? They didn't have the funds to make it sustainable. They didn't have a money mark financing that promotion. They got lumped into a shitty deal with El Rey Network, and that was what it was. It's a damn shame that that show did not grow to where it should be, because that was an actual alternative. I'm watching AEW, and basically what it is the best of Ring of Honor, the best of New Japan, the best of WWE, the best of WCW, the best of ECW, the best of the NWA. And it's like, I'm watching a show and a promotion that's littered and just hovered around with fucking dirt sheets and wrestling Twitter fantasy booking things. And it's like, I'm watching a show that's run by somebody from a wrestling chat board. But guess what? Guess what I realized, folks? Tony Khan was in message boards in the late 90s. So why the fuck should I be surprised? Right? Why should I be surprised by that? So we're going to get into this new rabbit hole of AEW versus WWE, AEW versus WWE, WWE versus AEW, Rampage versus SmackDown, Dynamite versus Raw, Elevation in Dark against NXT and NXT UK. Guess what? I don't give a fuck whether they get into a war or not, because guess what? It's counterproductive to not only AEW, it's counterproductive to WWE as well. You got two different organizations with two different philosophies. And guess what? That's okay! But the premise of everybody wants to have this fucking AEW WWE war, because you got this fucking wrestling dirt sheet Twitter echo chamber that feels that wrestling has to be presented in one way. In one fashion. That the way that is approved through the Dave Meltzers of the world, the Brian Alvarez's of the world, the fucking Sean Ross Sapps of the world, the Mike Johnsons of the world. If the wrestling that curtails in their favor, in their style of wrestling, that's the only way wrestling should be presented, right? And that's where my problem's at. What is the fucking identity of AEW outside of doing these to placate to the fucking dirt sheets? Please tell me. Tell me what that is. And for you, Tony Khan, to be such a fucking hypocrite. For you, going everywhere, oh, I'm not going to say stuff that Eric Bischoff did. Oh, I'm not going to speak on other wrestling promotions. Really? I'm just going to tell you how it is, folks. Whether you guys like it or you disagree, or if I get a bunch of dislikes here on YouTube for this segment alone, I call a spade a spade. Nothing that they do is unique or alternative. And you mean to tell me that we're going to reignite the fucking Monday Night Wars? For what? For what purpose? To fucking placate and satiate a wrestling Twitter audience who can't think for themselves, who are fucking insecure dweebs? So, you can have your wars. I don't care if they do it or not. I really don't. I want AEW to be good because AEW is building their own identity. But they're too focused on getting on their own way and reading their press clippings and getting passed on the shoulders by insecure wrestling fans who don't understand other aspects of wrestling is okay than just what Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez tells you. And it's like, at the end of the day, AEW's just there. For me personally. I say for me personally. If you're AEW market, they're the greatest thing that's ever lived, more power to you. I'm not going to begrudge you for that. You do you, I do me. I cover 6 to 7 different wrestling promotions every single week. I cover around 18 wrestling shows a week. I'm not going to be bogged down on the entire industry based on what WWE or AEW does. In my opinion, they can cancel each other out. I really don't give a shit at the end of the day. Because pro wrestling is still going to be around whether those two companies are at war with each other or not. I don't care. If you want that war so bad, more power to you. If you want this whole Forbidden Door stuff, more power to you. But at the end of the day, all this stuff, all this Twitter back and forth, where people are now saying that WWE is leaking out AEW's ratings out to the media, and all these stupid conspiracies that you get from David Bixen's fans in the world and all these other people, do you? If you want to believe that nonsense, go ahead. But this AEW versus WWE stuff is counterproductive to the fans and the industry as a whole, and that, my friends, is what the hell is wrong with AEW.
This has been What the Hell is Wrong with AEW.
Alright folks, so thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this week's edition of the Hoots Podcast. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Josh Lopez Media. Hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/The Hoots Podcast. Make sure to hit me up on Instagram, instagram.com/Joshie Lopez94. That's JOSHIE Lopez94 on Instagram, and Josh Lopez Music if you want to see me do some guitar covers. Make sure to bookmark ProWrestlingTranscription.com. Make sure to leave us a 4 or 5 star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps expand and reach the show. But also, you can follow the show on Spotify or anywhere you get podcasts from. Just type in the Who's Podcast in your search engines, and it should be easy for you guys to find it there. I'm gonna hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Always remember to be the authentic product that is yourself. And always remember, folks, nobody dictates the pace of your life but yourself, okay? I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back here next week to recap the finals of the G1, Crown Jewel, or aka Crown Royal. A lot of stuff going on in the world of professional wrestling, and make some predictions for Bound for Glory coming up next Saturday. And I hope you guys enjoy AEW Dynamite and Rampage this week, and SmackDown, and just professional wrestling in general. So this has been episode 279 of the Hoots Podcast. I'm Joshie. Right now, we're going to send out to Bert Carter for this week's edition of the Thoughts of Dericho. I'll talk to you guys. I love y'all. See y'all next week. Yes, sir.
And now, the Thoughts of Dericho. Listen well, man.
Welcome, one and all, to the segment that has no equal at all and would completely dominate everyone in a tournament of podcast segments. It is the Thoughts of Dericho, featuring the one, the only, Brother Carter. Well, the only segment that could compete with the Thoughts of Dericho is the flagship segment of the Hoots Podcast, but we already had that segment. But again, I ask, what the hell is wrong with AEW? All right, let's get into some WWE action from this week. Some good things this week, but, well, we'll get it down. We'll break it down here. So, we start things with the contract signing. It looks like we're going to have, Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, and then Becky Lynch, and they're going to have a triple threat match, which I think is fine. I like the pairing of the three of them together. So, and they had some interactions here and then some interactions on Raw. So I really like that stuff going on. However, we'll get into this next section here in a little bit. Then we get into the King of the Ring tournament, the first round, Rey Mysterio versus Sami Zayn. Great match. Obviously, Sami Zayn was going to get the win there, and he could be a good potential opponent to make his way through the SmackDown side to get to potentially Crown Jewel and facing the winner of the Raw side. So I actually wouldn't mind seeing Sami Zayn get that, but should be a great match next week with him and Finn Balor. That should be really terrific next week. Okay, then we get into the women's side of the bracket, and I know a lot of people complain about this, and I try very, very, very hard to look objectively and say, well, why is WWE doing this? Why are they? I'm sorry, but I have to agree with the internet masses on this one and say that I was really disappointed by how WWE is treating the women's tournament thus far. You know, I'm looking at the two pairings on SmackDown, and I believe the one on Raw wasn't much better. I'll get the exact times here in a second when I recap Raw, but Zelina Vega and Toni Storm had 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Carmella and Liv Morgan had 1 minute 46. That's less than 4 minutes of wrestling for the women in the tournament here on the SmackDown side. And I'm sorry, I just don't think that's right. And I know there's a lot of time they need to fill in the show and a 2-hour show. I get that, but I know I don't know. There has to be something you could do. You know, you could have 4 even matches. You know, because it looks like the only matches on the show on SmackDown this week, were just the 4 matches that were in the tournaments for the Queen's Crown and the King of the Ring. And why couldn't you give more of those time to those matches, and then do a little bit less of the talking segments? You know, we know the Bloodline and Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar are going to do their thing. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here. But something that's just not right. You've got to give more time to the women on that, because I didn't appreciate that at all. Got another great Roman Reigns promo. Paul Heyman, the Bloodline. There's nobody better than the Bloodline right now. Reigns and Heyman. I mean, and it's not close between them and it's them and everybody else. I mean, it's just terrific. Seth Rollins comes in to see Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. I talked about the Queen's Crown tournament. And then you have another Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss segment, and then Kevin Owens comes in, but unfortunately Kevin Owens gets laid out. So we'll see what happens with Kevin Owens and Happy Corbin. I'm curious to see where this is go. I still love the Happy Corbin gimmick. I think it's hilarious, and I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm very excited about next week, though. Sonya Deville returning to the ring against Naomi. That should be terrific. Now, again, we'll see if that actually happens, because it could be a swerve and Sonya Deville might actually not compete. And I could see that happening too. Because Naomi has done a lot with this. I will say, her not being on television, she has created, or not being in the ring over the last month or so, she has created an intriguing angle with Sonya Deville. Curious to see where it goes with that. But I hope it means a return of Sonya Deville, because I've always said she's one of the best wrestlers in the world when she was competing. I love Sonya Deville. I know she's had some issues and had to go into an on-air authority figure role, but which works for her. It's fine. She's terrific. But I always thought she would be a great SmackDown Women's Champion or Raw Women's Champion. So we'll see if that ends up happening, but I'm looking forward to seeing Sonya Deville back in the ring whenever that happens. And then, we get to the very end, incredible segment with Seth Rollins and Edge. Rollins, is such an incredible heel. This whole sadistic bastard thing he's doing is just tremendous. I love it. He's so good at that character. So that was terrific. Edge comes out and, comes out, and then they have the brawl, and then they're going to do Hell in the Cell. And I don't know if you can do Hell in the Cell at Crown Jewel. You may have to wait until, I don't know where you have that match. Maybe you can have Hell in the Cell at Crown Jewel. I don't know. But I don't know where you suspend it, if it's in an outside arena. I'm not sure how that's all going to work just yet. But we'll see how that plays out. But a great, that was great. Again, the only thing with SmackDown I didn't like this week was the hardly amount of time that the women got for the Queen's Crown tournament. I didn't really like that. Okay, getting to Raw. Let's talk a little about Raw this week. Big E and Drew McIntyre seem to be on a collision course. Well, there will be a collision course at Crown Jewel, and that'll be terrific. I'll get into my predictions for Crown Jewel. No, we'll get into that next week. But that should be a great match. Big E talking about the sweet nectar of being champion dripping down his chin and between his nipples, which is, Big E has this infatuation with his nipples. It's very fascinating. But anyways, then we have a little. Looks like we're going to have a match between the two of them and the Usos later tonight. That should be great. Xavier Woods and Ricochet with another fantastic match. Both of these competitors are excellent. I'm hoping that Xavier Woods will win the King of the Ring tournament. I know he's been pushing for that on social media for a while, so we'll see if he ends up getting that opportunity. I think he would be terrific at that. That'd be really fun for him to be the King of the Ring. So we'll see what happens with that. Great match with him and Ricochet. Ricochet is just terrific. Let's see. We got a Riddle Randy Orton backstage segment. Oh, that's all good stuff. The Hurt Business being back, Cedric and Shelton make quick work of Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. They could have a good feud, and I figured that feud was coming with Mustafa Ali and Mansoor. So we'll see what happens with that. That's going to be great. Okay, now here's another match. Dana Brooke versus Shayna Baszler. Now, Shayna Baszler beats Dana Brooke in a minute 25. Which, now, if you're going to do a short match, this makes sense because Shayna Baszler is a machine. Like, she is a dominant fighting force, and I love that. So now, if you're going to do a short match, that's the one to do. Not the other ones that had, like Zelina Vega and Toni Storm could have got 10 minutes, and it would have been fantastic. And same thing with Carmella and Liv Morgan. That would have been great. So, I don't know. Like, this short match is actually okay, but I don't know. Let's see. Almost defeats Riddle in short time, and then Orton hits the RKO on AJ Styles, considering keeping that feud going, which I think is fine. Bobby Lashley and Goldberg segment. Or would you rather cheer for a guy in cut-off sleeves screaming about murder? Because I think Goldberg a week ago said he was going to murder Bobby Lashley, which I was like, all right, cool. And then we're going to get Goldberg and Bobby Lashley at Crown Jewel. I'm actually not looking forward to that match, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I know that Goldberg's got to do his appearances, and they love him. That's going to be fine. I hope it's a great match. I'm not holding my breath, though, for that match, and I'm just ready for that feud to be over so Bobby Lashley can continue kicking ass, doing what she does. Austin Theory gets a win over Jeff Hardy. So there's a lot of really short wrestling matches this week. This match was 2 minutes long. I don't know if there was a match that went over 10 minutes this week. I'm looking at my times here. The Usos and McIntyre went about 15, but the rest of it, not a whole lot of long matches this week. Jinder Mahal beats Kofi Kingston, which I think was interesting. Good match. I'm glad Jinder Mahal's getting some more time. I've always said believe in Jinder, don't hinder Jinder. So Jinder Mahal gets the win, which I think is interesting. Good match between the two of them. I enjoy that. Of course, Becky, Bianca, Sasha, and Charlotte, the four top. Well, you could argue the four top females in the world right now. I don't necessarily say I would buy into that. But, when you got Shayna Baszler kicking around, Rhea Ripley kicking around. But, perhaps the four biggest stars. I would say the four biggest stars in the women's division, no question. Had a slight tag match, and then they all start getting into a huge brawl, which we knew what was going to happen. Doudrop beats Natalya. 3-minute match. The longest match in the women's tournament was Doudrop against Natalya. I'm hoping this means that Doudrop's going to start getting some time. Again, I'd love for her to become Piper Niven again. We'll see what happens. Doudrop versus Shayna Baszler next week. That could be awesome. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's going to be great. Let's see. John Morrison with Nikki Ash and Rhea Ripley. I think that's funny. Oh, that's funny. And again, Mustafa Ali and Mansoor are going to have a match, feud, and that's a long time coming, and that's fine. And then, of course, Big E, Drew McIntyre, and the Usos, a great match. And then Drew McIntyre and Big E brawl to end the show. So, not a bad show this week on Raw. Not great, but not bad. Setting up some things for Crown Jewel. And next week, I'll give my predictions for Crown Jewel, which I hope is a good show. It's hard to get a read on Crown Jewel. I'll talk more about it next week when I get into thoughts and the predictions and all that kind of good stuff. And those are the thoughts of Dericho this week. My final thought is I'm feeling much better this week. I've been, taking some time to reflect, and my mental health is doing much better this week. But again, folks, be sure to take care of yourself. If you need to talk to somebody, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. And everything, and making sure that we're really taking care of ourselves. It's been recently Mental Health Awareness Day and Awareness Week, so just make sure that we're all taking care of our mental health so we can continue to grow and thrive as a society.
This has been the Thoughts of Dericho. You're smarter now, man.